this tutorial we're going to work on solving systems of equations by elimination. So we see this system we have here, negative 4x minus 2y equals negative 12, and 4x plus 8y equals negative 24. Now, there are many ways to solve systems of equations. We can do graphing and substituting, but really I think one of the easiest ones is by elimination. What we're going to do is we line them up, kind of like I've already lined up my equations, and what we're going to do is we're going to add downward. And if you notice, we have minus 4x in one equation and positive 4x in the other one, negative and positive of the same value, so that's going to cancel the x's out. So negative 4 and plus 4 is gone. That's going to get rid of x's. So now, since our equation is only going to have one variable, we can easily solve for that variable. And then, just like with substitution, we're going to use the first variable that we found to solve the second variable that we found. So, negative 2y plus 8y is 6y equals negative 12 minus 24 is negative 36. So now I'm just going to solve for y. I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides, and I get y equals negative divided by a positive is negative 6. So once I get y equals negative 6, then I take that value and I'm going to use it in either one of my equations. The top one, the bottom one, doesn't really matter, whichever one I want to use. And I'm going to let y equal negative 6. Let's do the top one. Negative 4x minus 2. I'm going to let y be the negative 6 we found equals negative 12. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and multiply out these two numbers, negative 2 and negative 6. So negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12. And then now I have a two-step equation I'm going to solve for to find what value x is. So I'm going to subtract my constant on both sides, and I get negative 4x. My 12s are gone. Negative 12 minus negative 12 is negative 24. And now divide by negative 4 on both sides, and I get x equals negative 24 divided by negative 4 is positive 6. So that's my solution. The solution is x equals 6, y equals negative 6, or 6 comma negative 6. And just like with our equations, solving equations, you know, the best thing to do really now is to test our solution. Now I use the top equation to find my x, so I'm going to use the bottom equation to test my solution set. So 4 times x, which is 6, plus 8, and 8 times y, or negative 6, equals negative 24. So 4 times 6 is 24, plus 8 times negative 6 is negative 48, and 24 plus negative 48 is negative 24. So I know, hey, that's a true statement. So I'm going to go ahead and try it in my first equation. 4 times 6 minus 2 times y, which was negative 6, equals negative 12. Negative 4 times 6 is negative 24. And then I have negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12. And negative 24 plus 12 is negative 12. So, by checking out my work, I found out that my solution set is correct. 6 comma negative 6. So this next system, I have x minus y equals 11, and 2x plus y equals 19. So I can see that there's a negative y and a positive y. So if I add down, I get 1x plus 2x is 3x. The negative y and positive y cancels out, and 11 plus 19 is 30. So by simply dividing by 3 on both sides, I'll get x equals 10. Now choose one of those problems, and that first top one looks easy. So I'm going to do x, or 10 minus y equals 11. So I'll do the opposite of positive 10. I subtract 10 on both sides. And I get negative y equals 1. And can't have a negative, so I'm going to divide everything by negative 1 and get y equals negative 1. So my solution set of 10 comma negative 1. And I'm going to go ahead and check it just to make sure. So I get x, or 10 minus my y, negative 1, equals 11. And 2 times 10 plus y, negative 1, equals 19. So ten minus negative 1, or 10 plus 1 is 11, and 2 times 10 is 20, plus negative 1 is 19. So I know that I worked my problem correctly. The solution for this system of equations is 10 comma negative 1. Now we're getting into a little bit more difficult systems of equations, because now there's nothing that immediately cancels out. However, I can do something. Sometimes we can multiply or divide by something in order to make our equations cancel out when we do our elimination. So if we look at x, it's a -6 and a -6. So what we can do is, if we multiply the bottom one by -1, meaning every term inside of that equation is multiplied by -1, then our x's would cancel out and we'd be able to solve for y. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to do -1 times -6 is +6x. -1 times 3 is -3y. Then -1 times -12 is +12. So now I have -6x plus 6y equals 6 and +6x minus 3y equals 12. So I can cancel out my x's. I'm going to add down. So 6 minus 3 is 3y equals 6 plus 12 is 18. So if I divide by 3, I get y equals 6. So I'm going to use one of my equations. Let's say the top one, -6x plus 6 times y, which is 6, equals 6. So -6x, 6 times 6 is 36. And now I have my two-step equation. So I need to subtract my constant on both sides. Subtract -36 on both sides. I have -6x equals 6 minus 36 is -30. And now I divide by -6 on both sides. I get x equals +5. So my solution would be 5, 6. And just to kind of save some time for my video, I'm not going to check this one, but you might want to go ahead and try it yourself, see if that works out. Alright, so now we have -4x plus 9y equals 9, and x minus 3y equals -6. So now you can see this is even a little bit more difficult, because we can't just immediately see something that's going to cancel out, even if we multiply by -1 or something. So we've got to figure out, okay, what can we multiply this by, either the top or the bottom, to make something cancel out. And I can see two possibilities, and either one of these possibilities is fine. Either way, you're going to get the correct answer. I could multiply the bottom one by 4, and that would make the x's cancel out, and we would solve for our y's. Or we could multiply by 3 on the bottom, and the y's would cancel out, and we would solve for x. So either way, whichever one appears to be a little bit easier for you, personally, I think solving the bottom by 3 and canceling out the y's looks a little bit easier for me. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and write down my top equation. And then I'm going to multiply the bottom equation, every term, by 3. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 3y is negative 9y. And 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. So now I'm ready to add downward. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative x. The 9y and the negative 9y cancels out. And 9 minus 18 is negative 9. And I don't need a negative x, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. I'm going to get x equals positive 9. So now I'm going to use, in this case, I'm going to use the bottom one because it looks a little bit easier. X, or 9, minus 3y equals negative 6. My two-step equation, I'm going to subtract 9 on both sides and get negative 3y equals negative 6 minus 9 is negative 15. Divide by negative 3 on both sides and get y equals positive 5. So our solution is 9, 5. So now we have our last set, our last system of equations, and we have 2x plus 8y equals 6 and negative 5x minus 20y equals negative 15. So looking at this problem, this one looks even a little bit more complicated because there's nothing that I can see that I can multiply by a single number and everything really cancel out really easy. However, I can multiply both of those equations by a number to make it easier for something to cancel out. Now, the 20y and the 8y, that looks pretty big, and I don't want to get them into a bunch of big numbers, so I'm going to focus on the x's. And if I choose 5 to multiply the top terms by 5 and the bottom one by 2, that'll cause the x's to cancel out. So we'll have 5 times 2x is 10x, and 2 times negative 5x is negative 10x, and that'll cancel out. So the top equation, I'm going to go ahead and continue multiplying out by 5. 5 times 8 is 40y, and 5 times 6 is 30. On the bottom, negative 15 times, 2 times negative 20 is negative 40y equals, and 2 times negative 15 is negative 30. So now we've got something really crazy going on because now my y's and my constants are canceling out. Everything is canceling out. So I'm getting 0 equals 0. And when this occurs, what has happened is that line is the same line. The top line and the bottom line are the same line. So anytime I get to a point in elimination where I have a number equals the same number, my answer is going to be infinitely many. Now, if I ever start canceling stuff out and I get a number, now that's the answer to this one. But if I ever get to a point where I have a number equals a number that it's not equal to, then my answer would have been no solution, because they would mean that it would have been parallel lines. But since everything canceled out real nicely, that means that the solution to this particular system equation is infinitely many. Well, again, I hope this video was helpful to you, and if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and feel free to email me.